battle at the Capitol.
Obamacare has failed.
Thank you.
Big names rally with their parties to try to repeal or save the Affordable Care Act. House investigation. A panel looking into Planned Parenthood releases its final report. We'll talk to Chairman Marsha Blackburn. Turmoil in Brazil, dozens dead after a prison riot. Pope Francis speaks out. A report from Rome with Catholic news agency's Elise Harris. And the March for Life is just 3 weeks away. What's being planned for the 44th event? We'll talk to the group's president, Jeannie Mancini, on EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, January 4th, 2017.
Don't want to pull the rug out from people while we're replacing this law.
Showdown on Capitol Hill. Republicans huddle with Vice President-elect Mike Pence to repeal Obamacare as President Obama makes a rare trip to Capitol Hill to protect his landmark legislation. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those joining us from around the world. I'm Lauren Ashburn. As soon as he is sworn in president, Donald Trump vows the first order of business will be to repeal and replace Obamacare. Wyatt Goolsbee was at the Capitol for the dueling meetings with Republicans and Democrats, and he begins our coverage from the White House. Wyatt.
Lauren, with just 16 days left in office, President Obama is doing all he can to keep the Affordable Care Act from being repealed. But many Americans, including Catholics, say at least part of the health care law needs to go because it forces them to violate their faith.
Dueling meetings on Capitol Hill today. In a last-minute scramble, Obama urging Democrats to save his signature law and his legacy. But Vice President-elect Mike Pence says change is coming.
Obamacare has failed, and it has been rejected by the American people. But now it's the time for us to keep our promises. Step one will be to repeal Obamacare.
The goal for Republicans is to get a bill dismantling the law to Trump by February 20th. Minutes before Obama and Pence met with lawmakers, Trump took to Twitter, saying, "Massive increases of Obamacare will take place this year, and Dems are to blame for the mess. It will fall of its own weight. Be careful."
I'm sure Catholics have some of the same concerns that a lot of people do with Obamacare.
Angela Flood, a Catholic advisor to Trump, says many Catholics hope Congress will do away with the HHS mandate, which forces employers to cover birth control and abortion.
I think Catholics and people of all faiths can be assured that the new administration will have a greater respect for religious belief than what we've seen in the previous administration.
The same bill undoing Obamacare could also include defunding Planned Parenthood, according to the head of the House Budget Committee.
The funding piece of that will be decided as well during that reconciliation process.
But it won't be easy. According to a nonpartisan watchdog group, repealing the ACA in its entirety would cost roughly $350 billion over a decade. The same group also says repealing parts of the law could cut costs. Democrats are washing their hands and warning Republicans.
When they repeal and they make a move to do that, they're going to own this issue entirely. They can't blame us for taking away health care and insurance from 20 million people at that point. That'll be all on them.
Democrats also accuse Republicans of not having a replacement for Obamacare, but today Speaker Paul Ryan denied that, saying they have lots of ideas, but it's just about coming together and honing the best way to do it. Lauren?
Wyatt, it's not very often we see President Obama on Capitol Hill, especially with just days left in his term. Could Obamacare survive a Trump presidency?
It doesn't seem very likely right now, Lauren. Obviously, Republicans control Congress, and they'll soon have an ally in the White House. But today, the Republicans did make it clear they don't want to simply abruptly end Obamacare and the health care coverage for the millions of people who already have it. So the plan right now is they're working on creating provisions for a bill that would still repeal Obamacare, but it would make sure that the consumers and the insurers are still protected, at least during a transition period. Lauren?
Thank you. Wyatt Goolsbee reporting from the White House. Democrats also accuse Republicans of not having a replacement for Obamacare. Speaker Ryan denied that today, saying they have a lot of ideas. It's just about coming to an agreement on the best way to do it. And as Wyatt just mentioned, the repeal of Obamacare also includes language to defund Planned Parenthood. This comes as the House panel investigating the abortion industry releases its final report. Jason Calvi has been combing through the 400-plus pages. Jason?
Lauren, the report lays out possible crimes committed by those working in the abortion industry. The House set up this investigation in response to undercover videos. Remember, they claim that Planned Parenthood and others were illegally profiting on aborted baby parts. A one-year investigation wrapped up with this 471-page report. It points to many problems. One, the forms used when mothers donate their aborted babies to medical research.
The consent form is misleading. It says that donations of tissue have resulted in cures for such diseases as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and cancer. And that is clearly a lie.
Missouri Republican Vicky Hartzler is one of the lawmakers asked to investigate the abortion industry. They subpoenaed records from Planned Parenthood and their business partners, like STEM Express, a middleman company linking abortion providers with fetal tissue researchers. The report says STEM Express made $4.5 million in 2014. The report also says substantial evidence exists that Planned Parenthood clinics at least 51 times have overbilled Medicaid and improperly billed items to cover the cost of abortion services in violation of the Hyde Amendment. Democrats called the investigation a witch hunt and demanded it stopped. The panel's top Democrat, Illinois' Jan Schakowsky, says the panel leaves behind a legacy of lies, intimidation, and procedural misconduct. But Hartzler says the $1.5 million price tag for this investigation is worth it.
Whenever you're talking about life, it is not too costly to certainly figure out ways to preserve life and to make sure that women are not being taken advantage of.
This report lays out 9 organizations that have been referred to prosecutors, that the panel referred to prosecutors for a total of 15 different charges. Lauren?
Jason, give us a few examples of the referrals.
Well, one I'm thinking of is Planned Parenthood of Gulf Coast that the panel's referred. They say that there's evidence that they possibly were selling some fetal body parts to the University of Texas. So this case has been referred to Texas's Attorney General. And then another case that's been referred to the Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Justice, is a case involving an abortion doctor that witnesses say may have killed babies that were already born.
Jason Calvi reporting from the Capitol. Thank you, Jason. Joining us now is the Republican chair of the committee, Tennessee Representative Marsha Blackburn. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
You've been investigating this issue for a year and have come under intense criticism for it. Democrats have called it a $1.5 million witch hunt. The Democratic ranking member said the report is flawed and puts law-abiding doctors and researchers at risk. Now that you're done, what do you want Americans to know about Planned Parenthood?
I want Americans to know that the Republicans in the House stood for life and that we took on this issue of looking at what was going on in the trafficking of these fetal body parts and in the use of taxpayer funds in abortion clinics. And we looked at that business model that had developed between abortion clinics and the middlemen, if you will, those that were selling and transferring the body parts. And one of the things that we found was, there's this industry that has grown up. It's illegal. It is illegal to sell a human body part in the United States. It's a 10-year felony. But yet you had this entity that had grown up. They said they weren't making any money. But certainly the reason for some criminal and regulatory referrals was because of what we found in that process.
In the process.
And
as a result,
brought this to light.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Yes.
we're limited on time. As a result, it looks like there are 9 cases that are going for criminal action, as you meant. DV Biologics, Bioscience, Da Vinci Biosciences, the University of New Mexico, Planned Parenthood of the Gulf Coast. What happens now?
What we will do now is focus on legislative action on a couple of points. One will be to make certain that we codify the Hyde Amendment language. And those that are applying for Title X funds, you can't do abortions in women's health and get Title X funds. We will make certain that the health clinics are those that are getting the Title X money, those that are actually providing women's health care, and that abortion entities, those businesses have to be separate from the Title X funds. The other thing that we're going to do, you know, we found out by working with the scientists on our committee and working with some of the researchers, what we found out was that fetal tissue research is used only for every 1 in 100,000 research projects. We're better served to say, look, let's have this go through the organ donor program. And if someone has a miscarriage or a stillborn and they want to donate, they can donate through the organ donor program just as individuals donate organs now. And we think that that is the better way to handle this process rather than having the abortion clinics do business contracts with these procurement organizations.
Okay, that is very helpful information, I think, for those who are struggling with this issue. Tennessee Representative Marsha Blackburn, thank you very much for your time.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. A packed train crashes in Brooklyn, New York, injuring more than 100 people. The front of the train hit a bumping block as passengers were standing to step off the train during rush hour. Some were removed on stretchers or limped away with help from rescuers. Others sat stunned on the pavement outside.
I started flying to the front, and a guy grabbed me. In the process, I hit my knee on the steel thing, and now it's swollen, and I can't really bend it.
Emergency crews say most of the injuries were minor. The National Transportation Safety Board has joined the investigation. Convicted Charleston church shooter Dylan Roof says there's nothing wrong with him psychologically, and he's not trying to keep secrets. He spoke to the jury for the first time at his death penalty trial today. Last month, Roof was found guilty of hate crimes and other charges in the shooting death of 9 black church members. He faces life in prison or the death penalty. President Obama plans to transfer additional detainees from Guantanamo Bay before he leaves office. The president promised to close the prison during his first term. It didn't happen. Of the 59 prisoners remaining at Gitmo, 22 are eligible for transfer. President-elect Donald Trump vows to keep the prison open and, quote, load it up with bad dudes. In at least 4 states, so-called bathroom bills have recently been filed. And in other states, such bills are a priority for lawmakers. The legislation restricts the use of public restrooms to a person's biological sex. Our partners at the National Catholic Register have an in-depth look at the bills. To read more, visit ncregister.com. President Obama's legacy is on the line, and he's putting in the footwork to preserve his signature law, Obamacare. Joining us now is Tim Carney, commentary editor with the Washington Examiner. That's a new title for you, so congratulations. Up from politics, senior political reporter? Columnist, yes. Right. This is as symbolic as it gets here in Washington. President Obama marching into Capitol Hill to say, hey guys, help me out here. We've got to save this. Could it actually hurt his legacy that he's having to do that?
Well, it highlights how little he actually worked with Congress throughout his 8 years. To some extent, on Obamacare, he largely let Nancy Pelosi and the Senate chairman go ahead and write the bill, and he was very hands-off. He never had a good relationship, not just with congressional Republicans.
Or Democrats.
But, yeah, he also didn't have a good relationship with congressional Democrats, and I think that's a big part of his legacy, that he's a very sort of introverted man, very sure of himself. He never had that ability to work very well with Capitol Hill on either side. And when he showed up on the Hill today, our reporters at the Examiner said the Democrats walked out. He didn't give us any battle plan. He didn't give us any help. He just sort of got nostalgic and started talking about wasn't it great that we passed this law?
Right. And I saw him, he just sort of waved. And to me, that's going to be the image of the end of his presidency, is he's leaving the Capitol saying, well, I tried my best, yes, and now they're going to get the law. Your paper published a piece yesterday called Obama a Failure on His Own Terms, saying he failed on race relations, he polarized politics, he empowered lobbyists. It's pretty harsh stuff. Is this how you think he will go down in history?
Yes, because a large part of his appeal, I mean, some of the left will love him no matter what, though some have criticism of it, but a large part of his appeal was sort of reaching across party lines. And those examples that we gave of sort of taking power away from the special interests, healing the partisan divide, those were things that he promised that had these cross-partisan, cross-ideological appeals. And I think if you just look at the lay of the land today, it's obvious that he didn't succeed. And on some of them, we can point out why, that he didn't really have much respect for opposing viewpoints, and that showed up during the Obamacare debates 8 years ago.
So let's flip it. Now we're in a new era. Yesterday, President-elect Trump criticized GOP efforts to reform the ethics office. And House Republicans went, whoa, wait a minute. They quickly changed their tune. And is that going to be the norm now in the Trump administration?
There's a lot of very interesting dynamics, because when the House Republicans moved forward on that plan to change the ethics office, that was over the objections of Paul Ryan, who they then elected the Speaker of the House. And then when Donald Trump had the tweet and there was a bunch of public outcry, then they reversed. So how do these unruly House Republicans, Paul Ryan trying to get them in line, and Donald Trump in his own completely different ways try to get them in line? There's too much going on here to know exactly what the dynamic is, but for us, political reporters, it's going to be very fun to watch how all these parts interact.
It's amazing how much more glued to Twitter I am now to see what the president-elect has to say.
This dynamic is very different than any we've had in either party.
You're right. It'll be fun and interesting. Thank you so much, Tim Carney, commentary editor with the Washington Examiner.
Thank you.
Coming up, dozens dead after a large riot at a Brazil prison. We'll tell you what police are saying started the chaos. Plus, how Pope Francis is responding to the tragedy. A report from Rome, from our sister news group, Catholic News Agency. Turkish police say they've identified the gunman in the New Year's nightclub attack. The country's foreign minister hasn't publicly named him yet. The suspect seen here is wanted for the attack, which killed 39 people. Police have detained 20 people with suspected links to the massacre. A man is under investigation for his ties to the Berlin terror suspect. The 26-year-old Tunisian was detained in a separate case but dined with Anis Amri the night before the attack at a Christmas market. Investigators believe he may have been involved, or at least knew that the attack would happen. A riot at a prison in Brazil kills 60 people. Video shows family members running out of the prison after two rival gangs started fighting Sunday. 184 inmates escaped during the chaos. Pope Francis prayed for the victims today in Rome. We're joined by Rome producer Mary Shevlin, who is not in Rome. She's here in studio. And Elise Harris, who is in Rome. She's from our online sister group, Catholic News Agency. Elise, let's start with you. You were there this morning. What did the Holy Father say?
Every time Pope Francis has visited a prison, he's talked about living conditions. He did that again today. He asked people to pray not only for the repose of the soul of the victims, but also so that living conditions in prisons would be what he called worthy of human persons. And he spoke above all about the problem of overcrowding, which seemed to have been a problem at the Brazilian prisons, asking again for people to pray so that conditions could be better.
Mary, prison reform is an important issue for Pope Francis. How have you seen this play out during his pontificate?
It's been something that's been dear to his heart since day one, Lauren, and we saw this at the very first Easter that he celebrated. He went to a juvenile detention center and washed the feet of the young detainees there. Every international trip he's taken, he's expressed a desire to visit prisons, and most of the time he's been able to do so, to get in there with the inmates, to bring them hope. And we remember at the end of the Jubilee year, one of the biggest events he saved for last, and that was with the Jubilee for the prisoners and their loved ones. Over 4,000 people in the Basilica, 1,000 of them inmates. So it's very personal for Pope Francis.
I remember when he came here to the United States, he visited a prison in Philadelphia as well. Elise, the Pope's remarks came at the end of his weekly meeting with pilgrims and tourists. What was his message to the people, to the crowd?
Today he spoke again about the theme of Christian hope. He turned specifically to the figure of Rachel in the Bible and the inconsolable suffering that mothers and fathers can feel when they lose a child. So he said that really the only way to console them is to try and understand their suffering as best as we can and to be close to them in that moment.
Okay, thank you, Elise, in Rome. We appreciate it. Now, Mary, let's talk about what else is on the Pope's schedule this week. You're here, but you will be going back to Rome. We'll be sad to lose you.
I'll be sad to go back and leave you all here, but the Pope is continuing to press on, busy as ever. Thursday, he announced this week that he'd be meeting with the quake victims and their families, people who suffered the devastating 6.6 earthquake in central Italy at the end of this summer. And not even to give the financial aid, Lauren, it's really about this revolution of tenderness that he continues to carry on after the Jubilee of Mercy. He just wants to bring them consolation and hope. They're still without homes.
What about, I understand there are some baptisms in the Sistine Chapel. You're so lucky that you get to go there.
This Sunday, he traditionally celebrates the feast on the Feast of the Baptism of our Lord, which is this Sunday. He will celebrate the baptisms of the newborns of Vatican employees. You must be a Vatican employee to have your child baptized by the Holy Father. That's
wonderful.
This Sunday.
All right. Mary Shevlin, we're going to miss you, but we will see you back in Rome.
It's been great to be here.
Great. Take care. And EWTN will bring you 2 events from the Vatican later this week. The Epiphany Mass with Pope Francis will air Friday at 4 a.m. and noon. And the baptisms from the Sistine Chapel, which Mary mentioned, will air Sunday on the Feast of the Baptism of the Lord at 3:30 a.m. and noon. Up next, we're just 3 weeks away from the March for Life in the nation's capital. We'll get an update on the planning. On this January 4th, we honor St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. She's the first native-born American to be canonized by the Catholic Church. A federal judge blocks new laws in Texas requiring burial or cremation of aborted babies, at least for now. The judge is questioning the legality of the rules because there are already cremation laws allowing scattering ashes on private property, including landfills. But Texas is arguing that only applies to human remains, not fetal tissue. Virginia's governor promises to veto a 20-week abortion ban bill. The legislation is similar to the one signed into law in Ohio last month. Democrat Terry McAuliffe says he wants to send a clear message to the Republican lawmakers in the state not to waste time with the effort to pass the bill. We are just weeks away from this, the annual March for Life. It takes place January 27th here in Washington. The event marks the anniversary of the 1973 U.S. Supreme Court decision legalizing abortion. Joining us now is Jeannie Mancini, president of March for Life. Hi, Jeannie.
Hey, Lauren. How are you?
Good. Welcome back. Many people consider this a very Catholic event. But I was talking to Sean Spicer yesterday, who was really saying that when it comes to faith issues in the White House, it's not just Catholics, it's Christians, it's all faiths. What other groups are we going to see?
Right. We've been trying for years at the March for Life to do outreach with other evangelical groups in particular. So we were delighted when, for the first time last year, Evangelicals for Life coordinated this wonderful conference that had over 500 participants. And we're talking big names here, Focus on the Family, ERLC, Dr. Russell Moore, Jim Daly. So we see lots of evangelical participants in the March for Life, and we've seen that definitely increase over the course of the last couple of years.
I learned today for the first time that this will be the 44th.
March for Life.
Right.
It's shocking. I mean, it seems like it was just yesterday in some ways, and then, you know, this has gone on for so long in other ways.
I had the 1973, but I never imagined 44 years. You know, big news today, Jeannie, that the efforts to repeal Obamacare and defund Planned Parenthood are at the top of the legislative agenda. Is the new political climate increasing support for the march?
Absolutely. Honestly, Lauren, I think that pro-lifers felt very discouraged after the June Supreme Court decisions came out, and, you know, with the election horizons and what have you, and what that would mean for the Supreme Court and what that would mean for legislation and what have you. And then when Life won in November, I mean, both in the Senate, in the House, and then at the White House. I think it's just been such a relief to pro-lifers, and the motivation and enthusiasm for the March for Life, it's palpable, almost unlike I've seen before. It's
really?
It's pretty
At
remarkable.
least in the last 8
year.
years, it would probably seem.
Right.
The mainstream media never, well, hardly ever, how about, I'll qualify that, gives coverage to the march here in Washington. And if they do, they say that the crowds are smaller than we've been able to identify, you've been able to identify. And the media also missed the mark on the election this year.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate maybe that you will get more media coverage this year?
We certainly hope so. I've noticed more open coverage, or even, I guess, neutral, which is moving in a positive direction, coverage about life issues since Trump won the election. So certainly we hope so. And we always try to open wide the doors to the media. We have a big media tent. We try to credential the media and to tee them up with talking points and what have you ahead of time. So we do everything possible to
get the word
media
out. Who are some of your headliners this year?
Well, we're very excited to have a woman by the name of Karime Lozano, who is a very famous Mexican actress and has had a beautiful pro-life conversion story. And I'm also happy to announce for the first time ever that a man by the name of Bishop Vincent Matthews, he's a bishop of the Church of God in Christ, which is the largest African-American denomination in our country with 6.5 million members.
Wow.
The gentleman is a dad of 11, and they're going to adopt a 12th. I mean, great story. So he will be speaking at the march and praying, and we've got lots of other interesting people, and we'll be announcing it in the weeks ahead.
Including you.
As well. Thank you,
You'll
Lauren.
be there. All right, Jeannie Mancini, thank you so much.
Thanks for having
President
me.
for Life. That does it for us. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the globe, I'm Lauren Ashburn. I'll see you again tomorrow. Good night, and God bless.